hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where I break down the most controversial subjects, the most intense debates, the most contested topics going on in the world today. And tonight is no different. We got some stories we want to get through tonight. We're going to be here, as they say, for a good time, not a long time, but we're going to knock out the stories that are important because so much is going on in the world today. Still reeling from the MSNBC shakeups, man. When I looked at the graphics of all the people who were fired, man, it was Rainbow Coalition, man. It was rough to look at, but we're still pushing, we're still fighting, and we still got independent media. So keep supporting independent media at the same time that we call out the major corporate legacy networks, whatever you want to call them. We're also building our own thing over here. So shout out to everybody who supports independent media. And absolutely, Karen, they are all BIPOC. That ain't no coincidence. Shout out to everybody here who supports us as they do every single night. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're so inclined, always hit that join button as well. Make sure you leave your comments. If you're watching on Twitter, that's dope. I don't care where you watch from, just watch. But if you're watching from Twitter, it's always better if you come over to YouTube, not just for our own purposes of making money, which this is a business, but also because you can jump in those comments a lot more easily. Everybody drop in the comments. Be sure to shout out where you're from. In fact, give me your name. Tell me the city you calling in from, or writing in from, or watching from, in the country if necessary. We don't want to just be US centric. This is, after all, a global classroom. So make sure you do that. And also, you can leave comments, you can engage me, you can ask questions, do the things you need to do, as long as you keep it civil, you keep it honest, you keep it respectful. If you don't, obviously we got some moderators out there who will handle their business as well. I'm talking about first time you get a warning, second time you get muted, third time, unfortunately, we got to get you up out of here. But that doesn't really happen around here because we got a respectful, wonderful, engaged, civil, mature community. But I still got to give the warning just in case people start tripping. And I love the mods. I don't exactly know who the mods, I don't exactly understand how mods work, but I do like saying we got mods. It makes me feel like I'm in control and like I got some special situation. You see, I got my oat milk t-shirt on. I had a hoodie on all day, but I took it off. And I had my oat milk shirt on. My oat milk shirt, I love to wear because it makes me feel good about myself. I discovered oat milk like 2 years ago, maybe 3. Whenever they told me about my cholesterol, and I was like, you know what? Let me cut down on this. When I drink my milk, my lattes, I do oat milk. It makes me feel like a better person. I try to work it in every conversation that I can. Anyway, let's do it. Let's get to the stories. Any questions, comments, make sure you drop them in. If you have ideas, if you have anything you want to share, drop it in. Of course, super chats, super stickers, and super thanks are always welcome. But we're going to keep going. Let's see what we got here. Let's start off with y'all's President Donald J. Trump. Donald Trump's going to be in the news every night, y'all, so just get used to it. The White House announced on Tuesday that it will now decide which news outlets can regularly cover President Trump, a departure from the long-standing practice that I've always known of journalists independently selecting the press pool. See, for over a century, the press pool has been chosen by journalists, not by the government. Just a straight-up First Amendment violation, as far as I'm concerned. But one thing a politician is going to do, at least these types of politicians, is gaslight you. Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said, or Levitt, I think it is. Anyway, I don't know, whatever her name is. She said the change is going to modernize coverage by rotating traditional outlets and adding streaming services. The Associated Press, for its own sake, has filed a lawsuit after being barred from certain events because they wouldn't call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Yep, you heard me right. They were banned from events because they wouldn't call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Tuesday, a federal judge chose not to reinstate the AP's access, but urged the White House to reconsider. In other words, they know it's whack, but they don't want to be the ones to intervene. Further hearings are set for March. Now, if the president can pick and choose who gets to question him, what happens to holding power accountable? Free press is on the line. And whether or not you like the media, whether or not you love the media, that should matter to everybody. See, Donald Trump is a bully. And the Trump administration has bullied its way through the media for years now. First, they did it through shame and intimidation. And now they're trying different tactics. I mean, first of all, Donald Trump is up in the executive quarters of so many legacy media outlets. He's literally telling people, fire this person, don't fire this person. I'm not giving you access unless you deny access to that person. I mean, Donald Trump, according to all my sources, has been very active in his administration, not him always personally, have been very active in making sure that the press is managed and controlled. He wants to have limited opposition. He also wants the media to be a kind of a mouthpiece of his. He wants the media to be an extension of his interests, not the other way around. Or he doesn't want the media to represent the American people's interests, which is the idea of it. The reason we have a free press is to hold power to account, to challenge mainstream media outlets, to challenge the president and the mayor and the governor and the dog catcher and everybody else, to raise tough questions, to speak on behalf of the American people or the people, to fact find. But if Donald Trump is saying, look, you can only get in the room if you play ball with me, then what does it mean to play ball? Now, I don't want to romanticize the free press. Free press been trashed for a long time. It's the free press that normalizes the two-party system. It's the free press that ignores substantive critiques of capitalism. It's the free press that ignores the devastation and underdevelopment of the third world. I'm not pretending the press is perfect, but they were at least trash on their own independent grounds. Now they're being trashed under the thumb of the Trump administration. This is awful. And if it's happening to the Associated Press, what do you think is going to happen to smaller outlets? What do you think is going to happen to Black outlets? What do you think is going to happen to radical leftist outlets? What do you think is going to happen to queer and trans outlets? What do you think is going to happen to people who don't have the access and the power that the AP does? This is a problem. This is a problem. That's all I got to say about that. All right, let's talk about Apple. I got a little bit of hope today, a little bit of happiness today when I saw this story. Let's talk about it. So Apple, they had a diversity program, like everybody did. And it was attacked, like everybody's was. In the last few months, DEI programs have been under assault. Diversity programs, equity programs, inclusion were all under assault. Well, Apple's diversity program just survived a major attack. But it ain't over. The pressure is still building. See, earlier today, Apple shareholders voted down a proposal to scrap the company's DEI program after a conservative think tank claimed that it created financial and legal risks. They argued that DEI is divisive and that Trump's executive order against it makes companies more vulnerable. Now, to his credit, Apple CEO Tim Cook clapped back. He said that Apple never had quotas and that diversity makes the company stronger, but he did admit that legal challenges might force some changes. Other big companies, Walmart, Google, McDonald's, they've been scaling back their DEI efforts under political pressure. But I am so glad to see Apple push back. Now, for two reasons. First, Apple didn't just push back on the grounds that, hey, we got programs and we like them, or, hey, we're not going to kowtow to Trump's executive orders. They did it because they defended the idea that diversity is an institutional benefit, it's an institutional asset, that companies are better when they are diverse. This is where we have to begin. DEI is not a hookup. DEI is not a favor to Black and brown people or poor people or queer people or women or whatever. DEI is not the hookup for the vulnerable. DEI is a way of making companies, or making institutions more broadly, making institutions more efficient, more effective, more powerful, more dynamic, more creative, more inclusive, more fair, more just. When companies are more diverse, and I'm not just talking about the Black-white racial paradigm, not just when you add more Black and brown people to a company. I'm talking about when you add more people from different parts of the country, or people of different religious backgrounds, people who went to different kinds of schools. When you add diversity to an institution, the buy-in is different. The problem solving is different. The access to solutions is different. It's a benefit to everybody to diversify the workforce. Companies never really believed in that. Companies weren't, even when they were diversifying, they weren't doing it because they believed in that shit. They were doing it because it was good for business. After the tragic murder of George Floyd and the country had a racial reckoning, suddenly everybody was on board. It was cool. It was popular to say you were down with DEI. So everybody was. Now we've seen, based on the data, that even the companies that say they were down with DEI didn't actually invest in DEI. They didn't pay the bills for DEI. They didn't pony up. They didn't do what they said they were going to do, but they took advantage of the good press. And now under Trump, where there's less good press, where DEI is under assault, companies going back to their instinct, which is the bottom line, which is the status quo, which is to invest in nothing but profit-making strategies. And again, I get it. The companies, their job is to maximize shareholder wealth. I get that. But that's why it's important to get them to understand that diversifying the workforce is not an enemy to effective management of the company. It's in line with it. Apple gets that. Tim Cook said, look, it's not about quotas. We don't need X number of black people or X number of women. We have diversity initiatives because they make us better. Now, Walmart, Google, and McDonald's stepped away from that because they want certain kinds of money, certain kinds of support, certain kinds of political backing, certain parts of America to continue to support them. They understood it was good for business to step away. Apple has a different vibe. They got a different brand, but they also have a different political commitment. I'm not romanticizing Apple as a corporation, but I am saying they did the right thing here. And that's all I can ask in this case, is for them to do the right thing here. So shout out to Apple for that. I'm grateful to be able to see that, to be able to track that. I'm excited that we see some companies standing up just a little bit and having the decency to protect, to do what they said they were going to do, but also to do the right thing. Make no mistake, Apple's powerful, but the Trump administration and others are going to come after them. They are going to push them to get rid of their diversity initiatives. So expect this battle not to be over anytime soon. All right, y'all. Let's go move on to another story. We pushing along. Like I said, we're gonna be here for a good time, but not a long time. So, and I want to show you this image, and I don't like, honestly, to show images sometimes like this because they're alarming. But we got to get to it anyway. Sudan is on the brink of famine, and now U.S. aid cuts have made things worse. With war still raging between the Sudanese army and the RSF, millions rely on humanitarian aid just to eat. But after President Trump's executive order freezing USAID payments, USAID payments, up to 80% of Sudan's emergency food kitchens have been shut down. Now, the United States government says it issued waivers for life-saving aid, i.e., you can give them the stuff. But reports show that most of the money released went to arms sales and military assistance, not to food or to medicine. And with famine already declared in several areas and millions more at risk, Sudan's most vulnerable are left with nowhere to return. A couple things here. One, we have to keep the spotlight. We have to keep the spotlight. We absolutely must keep the spotlight on Sudan. At a moment where we still talk about Gaza, where the Middle East is being highlighted in general, you know, we talk about Syria, we talk about Lebanon, we talk about the West Bank, of course. We cannot ignore Sudan. Sudan is in the Darfur region, as well as other parts, have been sites of the most horrific human rights abuses and human rights tragedies and crises in the modern era, certainly in the 21st century. And yet, so often we don't pay attention to Sudan. There's lots of reasons why. It's in Africa. People are Black. They see it as an internecine war, as an ongoing civil war. There's no oil resources to exploit, or there aren't the type of oil resources to exploit that we see in the Gulf. The U.S. tends to intervene when it matters to the U.S., not when it's not based on the level of humanitarian crisis. but we see that now. So I'm saying let's keep the spotlight on Sudan. The second thing here is the direct relationship between cutting USAID and the harm that it caused. This is not an abstract thing. It's just like when Trump cut UNRWA funds in the West Bank, 8 years ago? It's a very similar thing happening now, where a very clear policy decision by the United States is causing people to die. It's causing people to starve. 80% of Sudan's emergency food kitchens have been cut out, shut down. That is shameful, and it's preventable. But this is where we have to speak up. If European babies were starving right now, there would be an international intervention. If some baby in Ukraine right now, look at Eastern Europe, if some baby in Ukraine right now were starving, because of a U.S. policy, the U.S. Congress would be speaking up and speaking out, but nobody is saying a mumbling word about Sudan. We must do better. We must do different. So we're going to keep the coverage on Sudan. We're going to not just talk about these USAID cuts, but we're also going to talk about what's been going on with the war between the Army and the RSF. I also want to talk about what's going on in the relationship between Dubai and Sudan and these Gulf countries in general in Sudan and what's happening over there. There are several things happening politically that we have the power to intervene in and to comment on that we don't engage as a mainstream U.S. media. Let's do better. Let's do different. All right, y'all. We're going to and I take what Marc Andrew Terry said here very seriously, which is not only starving but also medical crises. Absolutely, it's not just a food issue. It's absolutely not. As TK offered, in the short term, the food is critical, but Africa needs food sovereignty and independence in the long term. Agreed, 1,000%. Absolutely. Absolutely agree. All right, y'all. That's it for our political stories tonight. Let's move on to another kind of story, which I think is interesting. Drake says that Universal Music Group is still out to get Kendrick Lamar, this time at the Super Bowl. In his ongoing defamation lawsuit against UMG, Universal Music Group, Drizzy's legal team is now pointing to Kendrick Lamar's halftime show performance, specifically the performance of Not Like Us, as proof that the label is continuing to push what he calls a defamatory campaign. A pretrial conference is scheduled for April 2nd, 2025, that UMG, of course, wants to delay. Now, Drake's lawyer told the judge that delaying the case would only let UMG spread the song even further, reminding the court that over 133 million people, that's a lot of people, watched Kendrick perform it at the Super Bowl. UMG is trying to get the case dismissed. They have until March 17th to file that motion. And Drake is fighting to move forward with discovery, claiming that the label used fake streams and radio play to make the diss track a global hit, all to sabotage him before contract negotiations. I said at the beginning, Drake is out to get Kendrick Lamar. Drake says UMG's out to get Kendrick Lamar. I guess I should have said out to get Kendrick Lamar, get Kendrick Lamar crowned, out to get Kendrick Lamar championed, out to get Kendrick Lamar in front of the pack falsely. I mean, that's Drake's point, right? Is that your UMG is trying to tear me down, and so they're positioning Kendrick Lamar in these extraordinarily unworthy, unfair ways. They're making fake streams. They're doing payola. They're doing all the things to make sure that this song gets bigger and bigger and bigger so that I get smaller and smaller and smaller. And he's saying the Super Bowl is yet another example of it. Look, if I'm Drake, I think Drake has every right to be upset. If you're Drake and someone is actively calling you a pedophile, if you are Drake and someone is actively calling you a pedophile, and you're not one, you have every right to be pissed off. Now, there's an argument to be made about whether people really believe that about him and whether it's just part of the battle and that Kendrick just got the upper hand with him, because Kendrick has said some awful things about Drake too. But that's still within the context of the battle. But if you're saying the Universal Music Group, which represents both of them, is putting its thumb on the scale to make it look like Drake is losing and to make the diss track against him bigger and bigger and to make him look awful, now you got a point. You got a point. I just don't know if it's true or not. And I'm not saying he should sue. You know, again, you lost the battle. I think you got to hold that L and just keep it pushing. But I understand his point in saying UMG is cooking the books. Now, what I find fascinating is that Drake won by cooking the books. The same machine that Drake is saying is suppressing him was the one that was elevating him. You can't say all the victories are mine, all the losses are theirs. That's not fair, and it's not accurate. And look, Drake just released that album Party Next Door that did a couple 100,000 units. I mean, it exceeded expectations, certainly exceeded my expectations. Drake is still Drake. Drake is still a beast. Drake is still the top of the hill. It's just not the same as before. It's like LeBron. Like LeBron was still the best past his prime, even if he wasn't the same LeBron. Ironically, that's where Drake is right now, I think. And Drake is still capable of doing lots of extraordinary things, but he feels like Universal Music Group is the reason why he's not. I don't know if that's true or not. I think artists have natural ebbs and flows, and careers hit sunset at some point. And Drake is just might be getting past his peak. And I think Universal Music Group could very well say, you know what, we see that, and we're going to move on to the next star. That's entirely possible. I'm not going to speculate on what's true and what's not between Drake and Universal Music Group. I am going to say that pointing to the Super Bowl and saying, look, I'm being harassed and shamed even more because 133 million people heard Kendrick come at me like that. If you're already in the argument, the Super Bowl is the cherry on top. But if you're losing the argument, then it looks like you're just whining a lot more. It makes you look more like a sucker. Zakiya said, is he trying to renegotiate his contract or something? His contract's just about up from what I understand. And I heard he's asking for 600 M's, 600, maybe even 700 M's. But I heard 600 is the number I've heard most consistently, $600 million. He got 400 the last time. He got 400 million the last time, and he's now asking for 6. Look, Drake might get it. No, he's not. Drake's not getting that much money. But Drake's going to get a Brinks truck filled with money from them. Although now things are so bitter, I don't know if the them is going to be Universal Music Group. He may have to move to someplace else. UMG don't want to lose Drake, though. I don't care how much on a decline he is. He's still making a lot of money for them. Kismet said he may get dropped. Drake ain't getting dropped by UMG. Y'all crazy. I mean, Taylor Swift makes that building rock, but after Taylor Swift, you start to get into the black music, the urban music. Drake is right there near the top of the list, if not at the top of the list. He's still no more rapper than sales and streams and all that stuff. So they're not dropping Drake. They are not dropping Drake. But they also don't want to keep getting sued by Drake. So I don't know how this thing ends. I have no idea how this ends. But it'll be interesting to see if it gets dismissed. I don't think it does. I think this goes to trial and you see some interesting stuff happen. All right, family. One more story before we go. One more story before we go. I know y'all not ready to go, even though your boy is tired. It's been a long day. Canadian rapper Tory Lanez is currently locked up for shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot. But that hasn't stopped him from working on his next album. Tory shared a wild video of himself recording a verse on the phone while behind bars. Then things all of a sudden took a sudden turn. See, a prison riot broke out right in the middle of Tory's recording session. Let me show this to y'all because I don't think I can do it justice to just explain it. Watch this. Can y'all see that? Maybe y'all can't. Maybe y'all can't. Here we go.
We was cutting metal off the phone so we can stash it. 500 on his Ella, make him do gymnastics. See up to the yard and he got backflip. Crying in the cell so many nights that I got trapped in. I go to him and going morning and I got trapped in. He got in the cell and I got morning and I got trapped in.
It is wild. I don't think Tory Lanez is a good person based on what I've seen. I don't know him. I hate what he did in Megan Thee Stallion. But I don't romanticize prison. I don't get happy to see brothers in prison. I don't get excited to see people locked up. And I certainly don't want to see prison riots anytime unless they're resisting oppression. You know, you're talking about some Attica type stuff. It's different, right? But in the video, you can see Tory rapping. But as the chaos kicks off, he's forced to stop and prisoners rush by, and there appears to be some kind of chemical sprayed to quell whatever's going on. This is why I say I don't like prison. I don't want to see brothers getting pepper sprayed and tear gas. Anyway, it all ends abruptly when Tory drops the phone and exits frame. But the real shock is that he was actually continuing to rap through all that. This is part of what it means to normalize or have prison normalized to and for you. What else is he going to do? This isn't the first time Tory's worked on music from behind bars. He previously dropped prison tapes, but his recording gear got seized by prison guards. And Tory claims now that the guards weren't just after his equipment, that they were trying to stop him from helping other prisoners with their music. Last week, he said it's his time to shine. While with other artists from Canada, people like Drake and Party Next Door, and of course The Weeknd, all huge stars, especially Drake and The Weeknd. Anyway, Megan Thee Stallion is still dealing with the aftermath of the shooting cases, turning up the heat in her defamation and cyberstalking lawsuit against Milagro Gramz. Milagro Gramz. I need my glasses. Gramz is accused of spreading misinformation about Tory's case, and now Megan's legal team is looking to question Tory under oath about possible ties to the blogger. Tory's lawyers agreed to the move. The questioning would happen over video. So, you know, this is a normal thing for Megan's lawyers to interview or question Tory under oath because he's tied to the case. The idea that Tory's making records in prison, I'm good with that. I have no issue with that. Whatever I think of Tory Lanez as a person, I don't think prison should be a place where your creativity is stifled or where your free speech is muffled and where you're not allowed to do anything but sit and be tortured. No, I'm an abolitionist. I don't want any of this shit to happen. But to the extent that it is, let Tory be a human being in there. I'm not buying his music. I'm not streaming his music. I don't care what he has to say. I think he's very, 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 very talented, but I'm just not interested in what he has to say. But I'm not mad at him being able to make the music. But the fact that there's a prison riot behind him tells you, is just a reminder of the kind of conditions that brothers and sisters are forced to deal with in prison. Again, not defending him. Just pointing out the fact that, he's in prison and is some real shit happening, and we got to be prepared for that. So if you hate Tory or you dislike Tory, still I don't know if we should be rooting for bad things to happen to him. I just don't think we should. And if you love him, hopefully you'll get some good music out of this. That's all I can say. Anyway, I want to thank y'all for watching Night School tonight, man. Like I said, shorter night tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow with a much longer episode. I appreciate y'all. Can't wait to talk to y'all. Hit the like button, y'all. Hit the subscribe button. And of course, if you're so inclined, hit that join button. Become a monthly paid subscriber to the channel. You have no idea what it does for us. If you can't make a monthly commitment, make a one-time commitment. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop something in. $1 would be amazing. $1 million would be even more amazing. But no amount is too big or too small. But if everybody watching tonight were to donate $10, we would meet our financial goals for the month. So much love and gratitude to the people last night who did that, as we talked about in the aftermath of the Joy Reid cancellation. We need to build and fortify independent Black media, independent left-wing media, etc. The way to do that is to help us build. So please, if you can drop $10 in Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, I am grateful. If you can drop more, I'm even more grateful. But thank you for all the support and all the love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.